Good morning. Is everyone set? Very good. Well, we've just had another meeting of the Queensland Disaster Management Committee, likely to be the last before the cyclone hits Queensland. Tropical Cyclone Jasper will hit the far North Queensland coast early this afternoon and into this evening. It's expected to make landfall early this afternoon and into this evening. While currently it remains a Category 1, it is still expected to intensify to a Category 2 system and is expected to hit the coast between Hopevale and Cairns. Conditions will grow more intense throughout the day in that part of far North Queensland. A tropical cyclone warning continues between Cape Melville to Cardwell. Residents in the far north will have started already to feel cyclonic conditions this morning, including gale force winds. This morning, winds of 82 kilometres per hour were recorded in Cairns and more than 48 kilometres in Innisfail, 56 kilometres in Lucinda. Heavy to locally intense rainfall, which may lead to dangerous and life-threatening flooding, is forecast and may continue for days to come as the system moves across the Cape and the rainfall makes its way through the river systems. Between 3 p.m. yesterday and 6 a.m. today, SES have responded to more than 80 calls for assistance. 93 people are currently in evacuation centres. Anglicare, the Salvos and Vinnies are engaging with vulnerable people in those affected areas to make sure they know they can access temporary accommodation and that they know where evacuation centres are. I also want to thank the near 150 additional personnel, including 70 SES volunteers who've travelled to the far north to help Queenslanders with that effort. The Cairns airport is closed and will remain closed during this event. I will go to the Bureau for the weather update. Laura?
Good morning. So Tropical Cyclone Jasper is now a Category 1 cyclone located 140 kilometres northeast of Cairns. We have seen signs this morning that this system has begun strengthening again, and the most likely scenario at this stage is that the system will cross as a Category 2 system late this afternoon or early this evening, and it will cross between Hopevale and Cairns. So we've already started to see impacts on the coast, as mentioned. We've seen gales on some offshore locations, and Cairns has started recording gusts of up to 82 kilometres per hour and sustained winds of up to 50 kilometres per hour. So we are starting to see the impacts of this cyclone, and that will get worse as we move through today and as that crossing becomes closer. We have a warning current for Cape Melville to Cardwell, and that extends inland to the Atherton Tablelands and Palmerville. So the main impacts, very similar to yesterday, we're not seeing a change in what we can expect in terms of the hazards from this system. So the winds, as I've said, have already begun and will continue to worsen, and the likely scenario is they'll reach up to 140 kilometres per hour. So winds of this speed and this category system, we can see trees starting to fall down, including large trees, and any unsecured items can be moved around as well. In addition to the wind, we're also looking into the rainfall. So the rainfall isn't just a hazard that can happen with the crossing, but it can happen days after this cyclone has crossed. So the major risk for today is flash flooding. So we do have on our cyclone warning the risk of flash flooding within that warning area that may lead to dangerous and life-threatening flash flooding. And that's from locally intense rainfall. So we are likely to see totals in 6 hours of 250 to 300 millimetres, and we could see totals in the 24-hour period between 400 and 500 millimetres. There's also a risk of riverine flooding as well as storm surge as we see the high tide at Cairns at 10 a.m. In terms of riverine flooding, we've still got a watch current with some warnings likely to be issued later today as we see more rainfall throughout the day. This is an evolving situation, and we are asking all residents in North Queensland to keep up to date with our 3-hourly cyclone warnings, as well as any further flood warnings that we might issue throughout today and into this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, DP. Good morning, everyone. In terms of planning and preparation, extraordinarily pleased with which has been achieved over the last few days. We have got an additional 40 police personnel in those affected areas. And please, everyone, if you're concerned about your safety, please reach out to the police, the SES and emergency teams that are already on the ground. This morning we had the mayors online with us who spoke candidly about the preparation with police and emergency services, and that they are extraordinarily comfortable to date. We are expecting, as you have heard, a lot of rain, winds to pick up. We have put additional water police assets into the area just in case. We do have rescues or issues on the water as well. Can I remind everyone, due to the amount of rain and wind, please shelter in place, and please put those evacuation plans in place in a timely manner. And if you don't need to be out and about, please stay away from the roads, but there will be a lot of water on those roads, a lot of rain, a short time frame. And as always, if it's flooded, please forget it. Thank you.
Thanks, Premier. Good morning. As the State Disaster Coordinator, I'm very confident of the preparations that have been put in place to respond to Tropical Cyclone Jasper. As of this morning, we have heard that it will cross the coast potentially as a Category 2. We currently have 93 people in our evacuation centre in Edmonton and Cooktown. Could I ask everyone, now is the time to stay indoors. Your safest place is your home. However, if you're in a low-lying area or you do not feel safe in your home, now is the opportunity to move to an evacuation centre. As we heard the Bureau say, winds will increase and rain will increase throughout the day. So if you're feeling unsafe, please do that movement early so that you're not putting yourself or emergency services responders at risk. Considerable sandbagging has occurred between Port Douglas and Cairns, and I'm comfortable with the precautions that have been taken in that regard. The disaster management groups in Cairns, Douglas, Wudjil, right down to Yarrabah will start to meet today to ensure that the response and the immediate recovery preparations are in place so that emergency services can respond as quickly as possible when it's safe to do so. We are expecting significant rainfall in the area. We will see flash flooding in the area. So could I please ask everyone, please do not drive into floodwaters. We often think about the depth of the floodwater or how fast the floodwater is moving, but it's what's under the floodwater that also proposes the risk to the community. In the next 24 hours will be critical, so we do want to minimise the movement both on foot and on road in those areas. And as always, if you are experiencing a life-threatening event, please call 000, or as I indicated yesterday, you can call PoliceLink on 131 444 or our SES on 132 500. Thank you.
Good morning. Fire and Emergency Services pre-deployment and preparation activities are now complete, and we acknowledge the great recognition and response from the community in terms of preparation. It's been great, and that will greatly assist all emergency services in the hours and days ahead as this system crosses. Now it's a waiting game, and we need people to heed warnings, stay informed, listen to warnings, listen to public messaging, and respond to those as they come out. If you don't need to be out and about, please don't be out and about. It just puts lives of responders at risk. So I urge people to take that on board. In terms of post-crossing, act with extreme caution. Post-crossing, once you are out and about, there is still live wires, other hazards in place. So be mindful of those risks as you get out and about. The other side of this is that we've got a strong connection to who to call. If it is a life-threatening emergency, please call 000. If you need non-life-threatening support, 132 500 or the SES app is the best line for calling for assistance. Appreciate the community's response and continue that support as we move through the system. Thank you very much.
For the first time that I remember, the Australian Government was represented at this QDMC meeting at a ministerial level, so it's great to have Murray Watt here with us also.
Thanks, Deputy Premier, and thank you very much for the invitation to join today's QDMC meeting. As you said, I haven't participated in one of those meetings before, and I think it sends a really strong signal to the Queensland community that all levels of government are working together as we prepare for this cyclone. The Albanese government stands shoulder to shoulder with Queenslanders and the Queensland government as we prepare for this cyclone. We've had an official from the National Emergency Management Agency embedded in the team here in the State Disaster Coordination Centre for the last few days. As I said, I've participated in the meeting this morning as well. At this point in time, we haven't had to contribute a whole lot to the effort in terms of being prepared, aside, of course, from the important work of the Bureau of Meteorology and the Defence Force assisting with the evacuation of bomb personnel from Willis Island a few days ago. But we stand ready to support Far North Queensland, the Queensland Government and local governments in any way needed in the days ahead. There have already been discussions underway at the federal level with the Defence Force to ensure that they are postured and ready to provide assistance if that's required. We have our payment systems ready to go should the damage involve or be such that people do need some form of financial assistance, and we'll continue that close work with the Queensland Government ahead. So thank you again, Deputy Premier, for the opportunity to be involved.
Any questions?
Deputy Premier, will you be heading up north or towards Cairns today at all?
It's my intention to travel to regional Queensland today to be as close as I can safely be while out of the way of those who need to respond to the cyclone so that I can be on the ground in Cairns as quickly as is safe and appropriate.
A lot of people in that region, Deputy Premier, say, look, they're used to this, they're equipped to these types of storms. This is quite a serious event, isn't it?
This is a serious event, and it has been some time since this part of the coast has seen a cyclone of this intensity. I might ask Laura, though, to comment a bit more on how this event compares to others.
So we haven't seen a Category 2 system in this specific area since 2000. So that was Tropical Cyclone Steve. And in terms of comparing to other events, every cyclone is quite different, so it's very difficult to compare. We're really just encouraging people to be across the warnings, especially the tropical cyclone warnings, and looking at the hazards and the impacts listed in there. That will give the most up-to-date specifically for this system.
How similar is it to Yazzie? There's a lot of conversations in the media about that.
So in terms of Yazzie, again, very difficult to compare cyclones, and it will also depend on where you were in proximity to Yazzie and where you will be in proximity to Jasper. So very difficult to compare those systems because we don't want people to not expect large impacts from this system because it is of a less intensity than Yazzie was. However, Yazzie was a Category 4 and this system will be a Category 2. But having said that, we will still see large amount of damage from a Category 2 system.
Is there capacity for it to develop beyond Category 2 side?
At this stage, there's no indication that we will see this system intensify into a Category 3. So the most likely scenario is that it will intensify into a Category 2 right before it reaches the coast. So it's already very close to the coast. It's about 140 kilometres from Cairns. So it doesn't have a lot of space to intensify beyond that Category 2 system. And then once it reaches landfall, we are expecting it to weaken quite significantly, quite quickly into a low pressure system.
So do you have any idea of how prolonged the most severe conditions will be on communities that are, say, relying on wind strong winds and the like?
Yeah. So in terms of the wind impacts, that will decrease once we see that crossing. So we're expecting that it's difficult to put a window on it, but within hours of crossing, it will weaken into a low pressure system, and that wind will slowly weaken off over the course of this evening and into tomorrow. The rainfall, however, the impacts will linger for quite a few days. So we are expecting the rainfall with this system to increase as this system system crosses, but then linger for a few days and potentially weakening from the weekend, keeping in mind though that if we're seeing a large amount of water falling into our catchments, we will see downstream effects even once the rain has ceased falling.
How far south do you expect some warnings or flood risk?
So the Bureau of Meteorology does have a flood watch current that's been current since Sunday, so that really details the areas that could be in line to see warnings over the coming days.
Where did that system move as it weakens?
So as this system moves inland, it is expected to continue to move west, so into the Gulf of Carpentaria. The exact timing isn't certain, but around sort of that weekend timing, it's looking to be in the Gulf of Carpentaria. Whether it develops further in the Gulf of Carpentaria is another question, so we currently have a moderate chance of that cyclone redeveloping in the Gulf as it continues to move west, noting that that is still 4 to 5 days away, so there's still quite a bit of lead time on that.
So there's no indication it might swing south and move over outback parts of Queensland into the southeast?
At this stage, the most likely scenario is that this system will continue moving west and into that Gulf of Carpentaria. Again, there's always some sort of uncertainty and a large amount of scenarios with tropical cyclones, but certainly there is a higher amount of confidence that it will continue moving west. But we just really encourage people, therefore, to stay up to date with the warnings and to keep seeing what the movement of that system will do.
Is it early for the season?
So in terms of our season, that starts in November for Queensland. Seeing a tropical cyclone develop in December during an El Nino year is quite rare. In fact, we've not had one on the record since the records begun in the 70s. So it's rare in December, but it's even rarer to see that in an El Nino year, where we typically see our season start a bit later, so around January, February.
Maybe for the energy minister, how's the grid holding up? I know yesterday we were talking about some areas would start to be electrified late yesterday.
Yesterday afternoon we did forecast that due to the storm surge and the accompanying high tide that we would start to proactively de-energise underground assets in and around the Cairns CBD. And I guess this is the first piece of good news out of this event that we didn't need to do that. So we didn't need to proactively de-energise because of the changing weather conditions overnight. However, of course, as you've heard, this is an evolving situation. And in just the last few minutes, those strong winds are starting to have an impact on the power distribution network in the impact area. I can report that we've just received advice that there are now 8,300 homes that are without power. That includes 4,500 in and around Gordonvale, 400 in Innisfail, 1,100 in and around the Southern Tablelands, and 2,300 closer to the city of Cairns that are fed off the Moorabool feeder. I can also provide reassurance to homes and businesses that are now without power that we do have crews out on the ground inspecting the distribution network, and where it is safe to do so, they'll restore that power as soon as possible.
Commissioner Carroll, you're heading north, I understand. What will be the message to your officers? Are you taking, we saw swift water rescue crews, all additional teams head north. Will you be taking some troops with you?
We've already deployed a lot of troops into the north purposely, pre-positioned them in evacuation centres to back up general duties, to go into the vulnerable communities and work with the local disaster management crews in there. So I'm incredibly comfortable, as is I know the other emergency services, that we've pre-deployed a large amount of staff. And this really is to be ready for the response. Incredibly comfortable with the planning for this event. We've been exercising and training for months now. We haven't had a cyclone for quite a few years now, and certainly ready to go in terms of the response, but incredibly as important as we also recover. So for us, it's incredibly important to have high visibility patrols, to liaise with our vulnerable persons. A lot of the work we've been doing the last couple of days is working with councils to make sure that our vulnerable people are safe. So that's happening at the moment as we speak, but certainly very comfortable in terms of the amount of staff that we all have and ready for that response as well as the recovery.
Sadly, we see throughout disasters like this, looting? Is there a message to people that think it's appropriate to start looting or to start stealing from other people?
There's a strong message here that if you think you're going to get away with that, you won't. And this is one of the reasons why we put substantial resources into place, that if we do have a situation after the event where people can't get back to their businesses and homes and looting does take place, that we will have high visibility patrols working with our partner agencies to ensure that communities are not only safe from the event, but any possible looting if that does occur after the event.
Are you expecting the Bruce Highway to be up?
Yes, I might. Is the transport? Yes, I would expect there is a large amount of rain, Marlene, but so I'll get Laura probably to talk about the amount of rain coming. But certainly we do expect after events that the flooding will be over the roads. Maybe Shane can speak a little bit more to that, particularly around our low-lying areas. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. Yes, we definitely plan for that. We know that we're going to get up to around about 500 millimetres of rain in a 24-hour period. Our low-lying areas will see flash flooding, and we may see some of our major roads cut in that area. That's why we've been focusing in our preparation stage on supply, making sure that we have adequate food supply and emergency services and other supply in those areas. We do know in the far north that in most of the coastal areas we see short-term flooding, and we do know that the water recedes fairly quickly off those roads in the far north, but we'll still have to undertake inspections through the Department of Transport to make sure they're safe to travel on. So again, our messaging is that just because the cyclone has passed doesn't mean that all the hazards have passed. We know that there's adequate supply in the north from Townsville all the way through. We've already engaged with all of the small communities in the Gulf of Carpentaria through our local disaster management groups, and we know that there is adequate fuel, avgas, food in those communities all ready to go.
Moving on to
Is that the last question on the disaster response?
yeah,
We might let officials leave if they want to. And can I welcome Mikey back? Mikey's been upstaging me for 4 years now. And is it your birthday, Brendan? Someone said it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Brendan. Lydia?
the union deal that's installed to you as Premier is centred around the government's vehicle policy. How is it that Gary Bullock, an unelected union official, is dictating government policy?
Well, first of all, I don't accept the premise of your question, Lydia. The arrangement that Cameron and I made was between us, and it was one in the best interests of the government and of Queenslanders. We think we are best placed to lead Queensland with a focus on what concerns them. I always have been, ever since the government was elected in 2015, a supporter of us having the best workplace conditions on government workplaces, and that is what our best practice industry conditions are all about. They are all about saying that government wants to be an employer of choice. We want to be an employer where our workplaces are safe. We want to be an employer where women feel safe in our workplaces. We want to be training apprentices for the Queensland economy of the future. That is what our best practice industry condition policies are all about.
Well, there was a union deal. Can you please detail what that deal was, or will you be taking in Parliament so that Queenslanders understand what deal has been done between
the only deal, if you want to characterise it as that, I wouldn't characterise it as that. The only thing that you could describe as a deal is the arrangement between Cameron and I. We sat down together and said that with a cyclone coming, with the challenges our state is facing, with the need to deliver a mid-year financial assessment today, that we needed to put an end to the speculation. And so I asked Cameron to join my team, to be my deputy. I am grateful that he accepted that offer, and in return will support me in the leadership resolution that will be made by the caucus on Friday. That is the only deal that I am aware of.
Do you deny that there's been any agreement reached between the AWU and the UWU?
There have been a lot of conversations.
What's the agreement?
Since Sunday morning, there have been a lot of conversations, but the only agreement is between Cameron and I, and that is an agreement to lead our state in the best interests of Queenslanders.
Are you aware of any agreement or deal between the UWU and the AWU?
I'm aware of a lot of conversations, and I'm sure there are conversations that I'm not aware of, and I'm sure there are conversations that I'm not aware of, and people have a right to have those conversations. What I'm saying to you, though, is that the decision was made the moment Cameron and I sat down together, and I said that in the best interests of the Labor Party, of the caucus, and most importantly of Queenslanders, that we needed to put an end to the speculation, that I would appreciate his support, and in return for his support, I think he would be a very good deputy. As I said yesterday, he's been an excellent treasurer. He will remain the treasurer.
Do you understand the frustration, Deputy Premier, of Queenslanders after union leaders essentially removed the Premier and installed you?
Well, first of all, that's not the case. Anastasia made her own decision after a very long time in office. It is not unusual for people heading large organisations to make a decision to move on. In fact, if anything, it is unusual for people to stay in those kind of high pressure roles for as long as Anastasia did. She did an excellent job. The decision she made on Sunday was her decision. Now, similarly, all organisations need to resolve how to replace their leader when their leader resolves to move on. And that's what the Labor Party did. I think you'll actually, if you step back and look at it, we resolved that situation quite quickly and with relatively little conflict.